Okay.
There we are. So there must have
Well,
been eight.
we got the technical problem solved.
Yeah, I'm glad. I
Welcome to
thought
the,
maybe it was one of those solar eclipse glitches.
sorry. Yes, we're all discombobulated because it's the solar eclipse edition, season 3, episode 12.
Ooh.
Ooh, it gets pretty scary. As you can see, this is a remote location, precisely near where I reside. But we're going to be talking through the eclipse as we speak. Mind you, we're a little off the arc here.
Yeah, and
It's a
that's
little
all.
to the south end, east of us.
But should our viewers finally find us going off the air or something, nothing to do at all with government interference, we'll just blame it on the solar.
That's right. Eclipse did it. Just for the sake of authenticity, it's 2:57 Eastern Standard Daylight Saving Time here at the moment.
Standard daylight saving?
Yeah, it could be unstandard. Who knows?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that will go along. Maybe they can fix this all up on lunar standard time.
There's an idea. Lunar Standard Time. But if it gets really dark here, it's because it's the eclipse.
Okay. I think we're already past it. We didn't see anything because of the overcast and rain. So
Oh, you mean the atmospheric river?
not quite an atmosphere, just raining. It's not a deluge.
Oh, it wasn't the atmospheric shades?
Now we're getting technical. I don't know.
That's new speak, for clouds.
Oh,
The atmospheric shades.
well, I could put on a pair of shades and it might be okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this past week has gone by, and I'm afraid after we spoke last week, you said this week we'll have a whole bunch of really good news to talk about.
Well, and again, I guess if we dig deep enough or we find that there's just some glimmer of hope. And I guess maybe that was it. I thought about it this past week, and I thought all along that we live in a doom and gloom society. But then I thought, I think my grandparents did too, and my parents did. I'm always wondering, is this the end? How can it possibly get any worse? Little did they realize that people were taking that as a challenge, but we always managed to come through this somehow, some way. We don't always see the silver lining in the clouds and the like, but here we are. We're already almost a quarter of the way through that big Y2K scare that we had, and we're here. We're
Yeah,
living.
yeah, we survived Y2K. In fact, people who were born just after Y2K would be 24 years old and wouldn't know what the devil we're talking about.
That's right. And they've got their own little things to worry about, much of which wasn't whether the coding was going to destroy the world or anything. And so maybe that's the bright point of the whole thing. We will survive. Didn't they write a song about that? Carly Simon? I don't know.
We will survive. I don't know. We have to be careful because we could be getting into, greatest hits that people won't know what we're talking about again.
Well, that's true.
You got to
Yeah.
remember, that was then. Carly Simon is our age,
And we're not that old.
and now we're not that.
Not that
But
young.
but we're old enough to understand that 1979 was the last time we had an eclipse, and I remember that, and we're still here. That was even before Y2K.
Wow. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. I couldn't really have told you when the last eclipse was well, there's always one somewhere, I guess, but where
I
we were.
remember because we had all kinds of instructions from scientific folks. We tell you get a cardboard box, put a pinhole in it, and you put it on, and you hold it up against the sun, and you can watch the as it goes through the pinhole onto a piece of paper. I didn't do that exactly. Um, like,
Well, I thought about that and I thought, if you can get just a pinhole, imagine what would happen if you could put a magnifying glass in there. You'd be able to see it bigger.
we used to chase ants when we were kids with magnifying glasses in the sun.
I never did that. I,
We did. Well, uh,
mind you,
we didn't have toys in my neighborhood. We just had magnifying glasses and
well,
mercury. We even played with mercury. Can you
Mercury.
imagine that? We used to get
Yeah.
mercury and roll around on the table, and no one knew it was utterly toxic.
Well, I think as a matter of fact, out in my toolbox, I have one of those old furnace thermometer things. It has a little vial full of mercury in it.
Yeah, well, that could be something that a hazmat suit is required in order for you to use it.
You dispose of, yeah.
I tell you. So this week has been unfortunately not a week for good news.
No, I guess here in Canada in particular, we've got more intrusion from the federal level down into not only into the state level for our American viewers, but down into our city and town levels as well. So uh, I know we kind of talked about it before, and we're certainly thinking that our election can't come soon enough, but uh,
Well,
I
this
don't,
top-down approach from the prime minister on down. I mean, the most recent, in my view, intrusion,
intrusion.
which is a diplomatic way to say it's none of your damn business. Where he apparently had summoned the chief of police for the city of Toronto and had a tete-a-tete with him. But we don't know what was spoken about because there was no readouts given to anybody about other than a photograph of the two of them sternly looking at each other. And I'm thinking, you know, this chief of police is now in a list since the last 10 or 15 years of a series of really not very competent types to be in charge of a once pretty impressive police force. This Toronto police force now is reduced standards on so many levels. You have to wonder. But when he actually sits down and gets, I assume, lectured by the PM on how to be running the police force in Toronto, which is none of his damn business, right?
That's true, and you're also taking that with a grain of salt in that he also was the instigator of the big Freedom Convoy debacle a few years ago too. So
No, but I mean, frankly speaking, if the fellow who was the chief gets summoned, if he had a spine, he would say, "I don't have to talk to you. I have nothing. We have nothing to talk about. It's this is not something a one-on-one is going to."
well, that's right, and it goes down to a point of there is a police board. And if somebody has a problem, then they go to the police board. And if that's not resolvable, then there's a complaints commission that
That's that's
is there.
exactly right. So this chief of police, like in other jurisdictions, reports to the city that set up whatever it's called to be his boss, her boss, as the case may be. So once again, we have here a clear and unmistakable intrusion, dictatorial style, by the PMO into something's none of their damn business, to be frank. Okay, but you can see this the attack on provincial jurisdiction, and even municipal jurisdictions by the federal government of Canada is unmistakable. This guy wanders in and starts talking to municipalities, mayors, and promises all kinds of aid to them, completely bypassing the province and the premiers and the legislatures. No, I'm the prime minister. I get to do whatever I want. And then you have a lot of weak, spineless gutter snipes who will go along with this.
Well, I kind of wonder, it gets down to a point if he's dabbling his nose into that level, is then he going to start telling? Uh, I'm bringing in 1 million people, and you people in Lambton County are now going to have well, you have 6% of the population. So if I'm bringing in 1 million people, you're going to have to take 6% of them. Like where does this stop? Where does it end? Somebody's going to have to stand up and clearly remind him of the delineations that were put in place with, originally the British North America Act and, the constitutional issues and provincial rights versus federal rights. And
But you
but
can
then it goes back to what we've talked about before, is that are there any adults left in the room? And you begin to wonder.
Well, the common denominator here is we're going to use the justice system, the law enforcement community, to tell you what to do. They're doing this out in Alberta and Saskatchewan, where the ridiculous thing that happened last week was you had demonstrations against the carbon tax on the provincial boundary, and you had the RCMP on Alberta and the RCMP in Saskatchewan approaching it totally differently. If you were demonstrating on one side, you'd be arrested or being shown a show of force by the police. If you were on the other side, they were just standing there going, "That's nice." So what is going on here? And you can see that the people in Western Canada have had enough of this nonsense. Because they're saying, look, who does the contracted police force, in this case, the RCMP, which Americans don't understand. No one understands. This is very Canadian, that you have a federal police force that gets contracted by the provincial authorities to become the de facto provincial police. Okay, but
I
they
guess
don't get their marching orders anymore from peers, from the people who contracted them, meaning the province of Alberta through the Solicitor General, the Attorney General, however that line of command goes. It goes right back to Ottawa, and clearly, uh, the folks are being told from headquarters what to do, and this is
yeah,
basically undermining the police authority in across the country. Because if I'm a premier of a province and I've contracted the federal government's police force to do the work for me, why am I being second guessed all the time by the people who may not be the same political stripe as I am? And so, basically, you're being undermined. And
yeah,
then next thing you know, people in Alberta and Saskatchewan go, you know what? Why don't the RCMP just go back to their barracks, back to Ottawa, whatever? We'll just set up our own provincial police. Because in the rest in Ontario and Quebec, of course, we don't have this issue because long ago there is no RCMP that is contracted.
mm,
There's federal policing, obviously, but it's very, very narrow in terms of on the street presence in Quebec. Practically no presence in Quebec, and a little bit more perhaps in Ontario. But the rest of the country, if you go down the highway, it's the RCMP that pulls you over for speeding or what have you.
yeah,
But if this is all going to be part of this lawfare, I guess, that's being done by the federal government, current federal government, they're going to destroy a really great traditional law enforcement, famous law enforcement body. Because if you lose the confidence of the people,
yeah,
you know what's going to be next,
yeah.
right?
Well, it goes down. There's lots of things that are happening on that issue, and I can't help but think sometimes that is the end game, that you will do as we're told, and you're just starting to smack into the whole thing of, the early 1930s leading up into what became the Second World War.
Hmm, sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just gonna say it's just I don't know when we're gonna sort of stand up and realize that you can't just have that issue of do as I tell you to do and don't question. It didn't work very well for many parents who found out that they can't really tell their kids what to do all the time either. So
By the way, you notice it actually is getting dimmer out here. The sun is not as bright now as it was. We're getting to it's a partial eclipse that we're going to get here, so you can already see that it seems a kind of orangey out here and
mhm.
not as bright, even though the sun is straight up. So it there is definitely a haze to this. It is kind of peculiar
Yeah,
in terms of of the the color of the sun's rays. It's like late afternoon, but it's not. It's only 3:12. So it's
we've been kind of
uh,
late out since early this morning because of the
I know
atmosphere
the
shade.
atmospheric shades. Anyway, that's just for those who will be seeing this. There's a slight tint here, of the background. This is why this is the Eclipse edition. We thought we'd do something remote for a change. How exciting!
But anyway, yeah, getting back to our mandate, I don't know, is there anything that we should be talking about with migration and people things?
Well, let's
Maybe
see
just the
now. We
threat to
got
actually help people get across the border undetected.
who got
Nobody's
across the
about
border
that.
undetected. I mean,
Oh,
if
that,
the during the eclipse.
yeah, everybody's going to be looking like this.
Well, listen, there's 1.5 million newcomers. That's the new slogan, newcomers in the country, and there's not enough houses to put them in.
Yeah,
And the fellow who dreamt all this up is now blaming his subordinates. See, their fault. I didn't do this. Their fault.
that's what they thought I wanted them to do,
Yep.
even though I may have told them
It's shocking. I'm shocked. It is actually getting darker out here. Look at this.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Um, it's just directly behind me, and it is getting a little darker. A
Hmm.
memorable moment for the BORDERPOL Journal. How
Well, that's true. And if we go back in history, weren't these issues of sun disappearing taken as bad omens?
Yeah, well, it's a bad omen, all right. We've had a bad omen for 9 years. This is becoming the Canadian edition of the BORDERPOL Journal, I'm afraid, to our American and European viewers and listeners. Uh,
Well, and again, I don't know. Maybe it's I haven't really seen a lot of what's going on in the rest of the world. I know the U.S. is involved in their elections, much like we wish we were. Um, but I guess yours is coming up on November. The elections down in the States.
yep, yep. No, but there, yes, but for those of us on the outside, the United States seems to be an election all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know when they're not talking about some election. If it's not presidential and it's the midterms, and that's basically a 2-year cycle of elections all the time. So I mean, it's
lots of
all
money.
very democratic
Yeah,
in that sense, but it's almost like an industry. Elections are an industry in the U.S. A lot of people, I think, make a lot of money, regardless of their political affiliation, out of elections just by running these things. You know, the
yeah,
whole machinery of elections is a business.
yeah. Well, it's really hard to say. Is that a good thing? I don't know. And again, I don't know what's going on in Europe. I haven't really heard much out of France or Germany or any of the EU countries, so to speak. Other than I know that I think it was Greece that was coming over here to see if they can get some of our LNG, and they were maybe politely, but maybe not so politely showing the door. And well, I don't know. Are we slowly closing the curtain over ourselves too? Well, I think we already are irrelevant in many respects. as something I saw on the flyby news that we're looking to try and get involved with the AUKUS alliance again.
Yeah, sure. This is the reason they don't talk to us is because the PRC has people who can basically get elected in 9 ridings in this country. Okay. So it's not a shock to me that we're not in in that group, because in the Five Eyes we're the least responsible partners at the moment, because this is the according to various publications, this is a leaky ship when it comes to state secrets. So when a country like China can essentially determine 9 seats in parliament in this country, and it's been known for 4 years, and they covered this up, which is currently going on as a committee hearing in parliament, and there's basically, what's the word? People have stuck their heads in the sand on this one.
They
Uh,
can't just
well, it's absurd, but you don't have to be terribly clever to figure out why the Aussies and the Brits and the Americans don't trust Canada
yeah,
to be in high level discussions on with the military, because particularly since China is a rising military power that is already making sure that its interests are protected in its neck of the woods. Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Janet Yellen was over there yesterday, or like the last couple of days. This is the American uh, Treasury Secretary, and she's telling the Chinese they should shut down their factories because they're producing too much stuff, essentially, and that's wrecking the American economy.
well,
I like. Do you actually believe that if you go to some other country and tell them, I want you to put your people into the unemployment line so my people can, you know, be employed? What are you talking about? How about why don't you go back and be productive again? Why don't you compete? But the
part of that I
competition
think
is,
means that, you know, again, if we're talking car industries, because I read an article just yesterday about the the Chinese are started slowly taking over the automobile industry.
yes,
And when you can produce a car in China for $10,000, but you bring that same car over to North America and it is now all of a sudden a $25,000 car because of wages and benefits and etc.
yes,
I don't know how well you'd be able to sell the fact that you're going to have to give pay cuts. And that gets into another bugbear of mine that, money seems to be the root of all evil here. And maybe it is sour grapes, but when you get the Japanese fellow that is what is $700 million over 10 years to throw a baseball.
yeah,
Uh, it's no wonder that the auto workers want to have the same kind of uh, deals. Movie stars who are getting $100 million to shoot a movie.
look, there's inequities everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Look at in the Parliament of Canada. You serve 6 years and you get a $70,000 pension. If you get kicked out even after 6 years, for the rest of your life,
Mhm.
okay, that is a third more than the average Canadian actually makes in a year.
Mhm.
That's their pension for sitting around on their duffs. I'm sorry to be so mean in Parliament, because most MPs you never hear of. He's some backbencher, right? Uh, with very little impact on anything. But they're
Well,
they're going to make 70 some thousand dollars a year pension after 6 years.
and then
This
they
is
can,
a And you wonder why the average schmuck is pissed off with these people.
well, that and after that they can go out and still get $150,000 a year job consulting or doing something on
Oh,
top
they
of it.
get some sort of quango that the government in power
But they are
puts
also
them
the
into.
people that are supporting whatever is going on. Let's take 1 million people and bring them into Canada. Oh, I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of that. Again,
FYI, it's getting brighter.
yeah, I saw
Eclipse is
that.
over. We made it. Okay, sorry. Survived it. Just
Yeah.
just being
Well,
silly. Just being silly. No, sorry. I didn't mean to. And you were on the train of thought there. I didn't mean to
I
derail you.
wasn't. I think the train left the station. I didn't get on board again.
Yeah, no, it's just it's outrageous, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't come up with any good news this week. I came up with a lot of memes, a lot of those can't be posted because they're rude. Um, we'll have to work on next week's show for that. This one is more
I,
lighthearted this week because of the eclipse.
I still think the takeaway point today is that we faced many issues in the past, and we seem to wander through them, or muddle through them, maybe more than
Stumble through them.
yeah.
Yes, I know.
And the bottom line is that if you want to be doomy and gloomy, you can, but eventually, what we think is doomy and gloomy now will turn out to be pale in comparison to what we're going to face in the future. So
Well, I tell you, maybe next week we'll talk about what's going on with the economy. What did you say gas is now in where your neck of the woods?
we were at 215 yesterday, a liter.
A
So for
liter.
American friends, you multiply that by 3.78.
Yes.
No, you
No,
divide.
divide that. No,
Yeah.
multiply that. Yes.
So yeah, so basically at uh, 378 would be for 1 gallon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it basically means that we would be paying, well, in Canada, last time I checked it, at when we were at $2, we were paying $9.45 a liter, a
A
gallon.
gallon. Yeah.
A gallon.
Yeah. Thank you
That
very
is
much.
$8.50 for an American gallon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're above that now by 15 cents. So
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and we're
No,
told we will be $2.30 next week. So
yes. And a lot of those are as a result of stupid uh, geopolitical moves that are far offshore here, apart from destroying our own energy industry in North America, both out of Washington and Ottawa. I mean, it's like a death wish. Let's all go live in a cave. Sorry to all the climate greenies who don't like this broadcast, but I'm done with you people. Bottom line is they decided they're going to put sanctions on the Russians and everybody else. And by the way, it hasn't worked because the Russians are making more money now selling oil to the Indians and the Chinese and the Indonesians and than they ever did before. They're making money hand over fist. Hasn't impacted them at all. In fact, it made them stronger financially, while Europe and the rest of us go up the spout in debt. So these juveniles are have really made a mess of things. Sorry for calling him that because there are no adults in the room anymore.
yeah,
It seems that these you got two kinds running the show. These very old guys and gals, Yellen and Biden. These are old people, okay? And then you have a whole bunch of young people at the other end who have no clue what the heck is going on. They're being conned by this old bunch. There's a very simple
and
people
now
say you guys are talking gibberish. It's not that. It's much more complicated than that. No, it's what we see. This is what's in front of us. When the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States goes off to China and instructs him to shut down their plant because it's not good for America, you gotta wonder, like, are you serious? You think those guys are going to take you seriously? What nonsense!
well, I did see something on the flyby news the other day about China thought that maybe they should try and get in Ottawa's good books again because of the past goings on. And I wonder whether that means that they're afraid that part of their I don't know what I'm thinking of, but part of their interference has given a rise to the fact that we might end up with a conservative government, which may not be totally supportive of China. I mean, Where does that go, man?
You know, that we should maybe that's what we should talk about next week, about what exactly do we get out of two choices. Do we disengage or do we find some way to uh, uh, coexist? Because right now, I think disengagement is not possible because you'd empty out Walmart within 6 weeks here. Okay, because but on the other hand, if you want to go back and to be competitive, whether it's the automotive industry, the electronics industry, or the agriculture, how do you do that and still keep, some semblance of a supply chain going, making prices affordable again, and so forth. So, maybe that's something we should look at because there's a lot of information out there right now about the economy, which is far more reliable than the political mumbo jumbo and gobbledygook we're getting from the leadership out of the G7 because it's just silly. The silly talk. It's time to end the silly talk. So I think I'll focus on that next week.
Well, that and will that mean that perhaps we should go back to bringing immigrants in that can actually do things as
Sure.
opposed to
If we need carpenters, let's bring carpenters. If we need doctors, let's bring doctors. We
yeah,
don't need more people to sell cell phones in the mall.
no, no, and let's get back into the point that we should have government selected immigrants, not self-selected ones. And
Exactly.
mm,
That's pretty serious stuff you're bringing up. We'll have to do research on that. Listen, we'll call the staff together and we'll have a think tank on that.
okay,
Oh, okay. Hey, if you like what you see, hit the button, like, hit the
like
bell for the subscription if you're on YouTube. Uh, Let us know.
yeah, I know we
We
wander, we roll all over the place, but
Yeah, but we survived the eclipse. Look at that. The sun, she still be shining.
and I'll bet you it's still going to rise in the east and set in the west.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to be signing off now, and you'll be signing off, and we'll see you next week, Bob.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yes.
Bye.